stay focused with the focus. And again, this particular message is pretty short. And it starts with, Holy Spirit, what would you share with me today? And here's the answer. Focus is central to your theme now. Focus on the heart. Focus on the center. Focus on purpose. Focus on who you are. This focus can be called remembrance. It is the purpose for everything that is going on around you now. There is nothing that is happening around you or within you that does not have this purpose. This singular purpose is focus. Stay focused with the focus, and you are the purpose. So, before we go on to the next paragraph, one thing that is pretty important, and I don't really think it's just to me, although this message is what I call a personal message, but notice it says, to stay focused on the focus, right? And it says, it is the purpose for everything that is going on around you now. This is what we really call Holy Spirit reinterpreting what ego made. And that's what the Course says Holy Spirit does. The Course says that Holy Spirit reinterprets everything the ego made. From the ego perspective, the purpose of everything that is going on around me now is to distract me from who I really am. It's to get me to believe otherwise, to believe that I am a person, a victim to the world, lacking, mortal. That's the purpose of the world for the ego. And so, if someone was to tell you, the purpose of this is to distract you, on the one hand, that is true. But Spirit reinterprets that. And Spirit says the purpose of that is to help you focus on your center, focus on that open heart chakra, focus on stillness, remember your purpose. And the funny thing is that doesn't matter what's in my life. I mean, it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's a hectic job, a difficult romance, screaming children, no job. All these things that the ego would throw into my life to distract me, the Spirit says they're all there to help us learn to focus, and that's a pretty nice practice, actually. I do enjoy that practice. I enjoy the practice of when my mind is distracted and I forget for a moment. I enjoy when the remembrance comes back in my mind, taking at least a moment to be still, to say my mantra, to remember my purpose, and to do that no matter what is going on, no matter where I'm at, no matter what I'm doing. And I also really enjoy not believing that my situation can distract me, that it has any kind of power over me. I really enjoy the challenge of being centered no matter what, that practice. And that's what Spirit is talking about in this particular message. If we go on to the next paragraph, he says, that which is around you and about you seems different in its reference and expression and degree. Yet nothing is different when it all balances and comes forth through the same purpose or focus. So I think we're all aware of this, some things may seem like a little annoyance, like you're in a hurry, you're about to run out the door and you drop a can of pickles and break it all over the floor. That's an annoyance. I was in a hurry and now I have to clean up these pickles and this pickle juice all over the house. And then other things may seem really, really big, like not having money, having your spouse leave you, an illness, right? Whether it's your illness or an illness for someone else that's very close to you. But what Spirit is telling us is that which is around us and about us is not different in reference, expression, or degree. And it all has the same purpose. The same purpose is to help us be focused, to not be shaken up by different situations, but to maintain that focus always, to be a master. That's really what it's there to help us do. To be a master at maintaining focus, or at listening to only one voice. Just as an example, we all, I think, have an idea of what a master piano player is. And we know that you cannot become a master piano player if all you ever do is practice chopsticks. Even if you practice 3 hours a day, if the only song you ever play is chopsticks, you're never going to be a master piano player. At some point you have to go beyond chopsticks. Well, at first, it may be really helpful to practice staying centered as I'm running at the door and I drop the jar of pickles. But if I want to be the master, it's also helpful to use my spouse leaving me as an opportunity to learn to stay focused. Losing a job as an opportunity to learn to stay focused on the center, on the thought of God, on the peace, on the open heart chakra, right? To use illness. In fact, we had a message about that last week. Last week was the message we had where a person had cancer and they asked me to ask Spirit for a message for them. And Spirit was asking this person to use the cancer to learn to let go of fear and to stay in peace. You see how Spirit did not say, oh, cancer, now that's bad. Okay, now that's bad. Right? For Spirit, the response is always the same. Everything has the same purpose. And the real question, I guess, that we can ask ourselves is, do I want to become the master? Do I want to become the master of being at peace always? And then if so, why would I be upset when Holy Spirit gives me a more difficult piece to practice on? And by peace, of course, I'm using the music analogy again, right? I have to go beyond chopsticks. I once said, and I still mean this, that I want such firm peace within me, such unshakable peace as my only focus, my only attention, my only awareness, that I could walk through a war zone and not be upset. I may feel perfectly guided. I may know what to say to whom and what to do, where to wrap a bandage, right? How to help people out of a burning building. But at peace, right? Not losing my peace. And that's what our life is for, whatever the heck our life is. I'm reminded now of John Sherman. Some of you guys may know John Sherman. He is a spiritual teacher. And I guess he was, in the language of the world, he was a bad guy once. And he was in prison. I don't know what he did, but if we divide the world into good guys and bad guys, he was a bad guy. I don't know what he did. But he was in prison. And what he ended up using his prison sentence for, he was a bank robber. Okay, thank you. He was a bank robber. Yeah, so he was that's the kind of bad guys that we write books about, right? The bank robbers. So he was a bad guy. And he was put in prison. And he ended up at some point choosing to use his time in prison to awaken. That became his focus. Yeah, you're kind of guy, Joe. I thought of you when I said he was a bad guy. Joe used to be a bad guy, too. So he chose to use his time in prison to awaken. And I saw him in an interview once, and this guy was asking him about, isn't it hard when you're in prison, when you're in that environment, to maintain that type of focus to awaken? And John Sherman answered him by saying, my life was perfect for me to awaken. And then he looked at the interviewer and he said, and your life is perfect for you. And I think that's a really important point that maybe all of us would do well to remember. The ego always wants to tell us that it's easier for somebody else, right? It's easier for Regina to awaken, out there in Pueblo, surrounded by all of these people, these like-minded people who come there to focus only on that. But what John Sherman said is that your life is perfect for you to awaken. Remember, you want to become the master pianist, the master with the focus. You don't want to only be able to maintain your peace when you're in Pueblo. You want to be able to maintain your peace always. And you can trust Spirit to guide you. And sometimes we are guided from one place to another. That's clearly happened to me. But I'll tell you how it started. It started when I had a job that, for me, I thought was pretty stressful. I went from one meeting to another, back-to-back meetings, without even the opportunity to pee. That was always my complaint. I don't even get to pee at work. And all people did in these meetings was argue, and this was my day. This was my job. I went from official argument to official argument all day long. And, it was really fun, yeah. And I remember I would sit at home in the morning because I was a new course student, and I would do my course lesson. I'd do my text reading. I would feel so great, right? And then I'd walk into work, and it was like I walked from a color movie to a black and white movie. I know some of you guys know what I'm talking about. And there was no way I could maintain my peace at work. I mean, that was just impossible. I could only do it at home on the love seat with A Course in Miracles in my lap, right? I couldn't do it at work. And I really thought, I need to leave this job in order to awaken, right? This job is in my way. This job is the obstacle. And I even had a plan. Some of you guys know this. I had a plan. Ron and I were going to get married. We were going to move to Colorado. And I was going to use the money I had to pay cash for a house. That was going to be my financial contribution to the family. And then I was not going to have to work. And my plan was I would spend all the time studying A Course in Miracles and awaken. And some of you guys also know what happened, is that as it neared the time for this to happen, Ron got what we call cold feet. And he didn't want to get married. And he didn't want me to go to Colorado with him. And at first, what the ego said to me is that everything I wanted was being taken away, right? It was all being taken away. But that particular day, my Course in Miracles lesson was, forgiveness offers me everything I want. Is that the exact words? Something like that, right? Some of you may know. Forgiveness offers me everything I want. And so what I decided to do was to use this situation. It seemed like the world was crashing down on me, but I decided to use this situation to learn what the heck forgiveness was. And what I discovered was that the real obstacle in my mind wasn't the fact that this situation was unfolding the way it was. The real obstacle in my mind were all of the crazy thoughts I allowed in my mind thinking about it. In fact, I remember one day Jasmine and I went to Nara Park in Acton, Massachusetts, and we were just throwing rocks into the lake, and she's giggling and having fun. The big rocks make one kind of plop sound, and the little rocks make another kind of sound, and she was having so much fun. I'm standing there by her mechanically throwing rocks, but my mind is all caught up in this craziness. And listen to the craziness. You'll hear how crazy it is. On the one hand, I'm thinking about how can I talk Ron into marrying me, because I really got to have this. How can I convince him to make this, to change his mind, to go ahead and marry me so I can quit my job and I can move to Colorado, right? And then on the other hand, I'm worrying about what if he changes his mind? How am I going to work out the timing? My big fear then was I only wanted Jasmine to move in the summer or at Christmas. I thought that it would be too stressful for her to move during a school year. And how am I going to work out all the timing? And, my mind was just crazy. It was crazy on both sides of the argument. It was nothing but crazy. And all of a sudden it hit me. That was the problem. The thoughts in the mind. Remember, when Ron said that he did not want to get married, or when he began to hint that he didn't want to get married, he didn't actually tell me straight out yet. He was just beginning to make those hints. When Ron began to hint that he did not want to get married, The ego told me the world was crashing down on me. Everything I wanted was being taken away. But I made a decision to use the situation to learn what forgiveness is, because I didn't know yet. And I did. I learned what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is letting go of thoughts. Well, after that happened, I actually ended up helping Ron tell me he didn't want to get married, and I let him go to Colorado, and I chose at that point to remain his girlfriend, to not see that as a reason for a breakup. And in fact, I went and bought plane tickets to come out and visit him. I told him it was okay. I would still love him. He didn't have to marry me, right? And that's how we stayed together at that particular point. And I was pretty happy, actually, because what also happened is I felt like Holy Spirit had a plan for me, and that I didn't know what it was yet, but that it wasn't my plan, and that plan would unfold. I was pretty happy to have made myself available for whatever the plan was going to be. But as I got back into work, as I walked back into that place where the world turns black and white and gray and everybody's yelling at each other and I don't have time to pee, that same old frustration came over me again, like this job is in my way. And so one day I was walking through the halls at work and I just said, Holy Spirit, why do I have to stay here? And what came into my mind was a song. And the song was the answer to my question. The song said, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. And I knew then that my job was my current schoolhouse, that I wasn't to create some peaceful situation and be at peace, that I was to learn to be at peace right in the middle of the battle. And so I made another decision. Remember when Ron decided he didn't want to get married? I decided to use it to learn forgiveness. Well, when Holy Spirit showed me that my job was my schoolhouse, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere, I decided to learn peace at work. And I didn't do anything that we don't, talk about here every night. I learned to let go of my thoughts. I learned to let go of my grievances. In fact, shortly after that, I sat in a meeting. We had about 41 directors and senior staff in the entire company. And once a month, we would all come together for what was called a leadership meeting. And I sat in that meeting. I'd worked at this company for 9 years. And I sat at that meeting, and I looked around the table at the other 40 people there. And I realized there might have been 1 or 2 people around that table that I liked. For the most part, I didn't like any of them because of the battles we'd fought, right? I had grievances stacked up the kazoo. And I realized I did have some work to do. And so I set out with Holy Spirit's help to let go of all of those grievances and all of those judgments. One thing I did is I started every week scheduling lunch with somebody that I hated. I started with the people I hated the most. And at first I was terrified to do that because I knew they hated me too, and I thought they'd say no. But you know what? Most of them said yes. And we started going to lunch. And I kept watching my mind and watching my judgments and letting go of grievances and doing the Course in Miracles workbook and reading the text. And it was only about 3 or 4 months into it when people began to say things to me. I remember this one woman came up to me and she said, Regina, I used to not like you, but, you're really okay. And people started coming to me and saying, Regina, why are you so happy? I guess I started smiling more, right? I was glowing a little bit. Why are you so happy? Regina, what are you doing? And then what began to happen is these same people, right, my peers, began to schedule private meetings with me in my office so that they could ask me what I was doing to be so happy. And I gave them honest answers. I told them about A Course in Miracles. I told them about Peace Pilgrim, who was also a big influence on me. I began to teach them about how I was watching the mind. I began to teach them about, unworthiness and letting go of unworthiness. What began to happen is that when I would walk into work, the sun kept shining. I was still in all the same meetings, right? I still had back-to-back meetings and all of that, but it was different. It was just different because I was different. And again, people began to smile back at me. And so maybe in some ways it wasn't the same meetings anymore. It did change, right? But it changed because I changed. And then you know what happened? Then I received guidance from Holy Spirit to quit my job and move. But you know, that guidance didn't come until I was at peace and happy. In fact, when I left, they threw a going away party for me, and everybody came. And, you know, I cried the sentimental, oh, I don't want to leave you guys. I love you so much, crying. But these were the same people I hated a year ago. So this is what Spirit is saying in this message. He's telling us there is nothing that is happening around us or even within us that does not have the purpose, the singular purpose, of maintaining our happiness no matter what. It's to help us become the master, to go beyond chopsticks, right? To always be the presence of love and not have it be dependent on a specific circumstance going a certain way, right? Joy is not circumstantial. Now, let's look at the second paragraph again. In fact, I don't think I read all of it yet. I think I only read like the first half of the second paragraph. So let's look at that. That which is around you and about you seems different in its reference and expression and degree. Yet nothing is different when it all balances and comes forth through the same purpose or focus. And then Spirit says, stay there with it all. This is all you are to do now. Stay with that one focus through everything. And you have found the harmony. Oh, look, I guess Spirit knew that a few years after he gave me this message, I'd be using the piano master as the example, because he threw in the word harmony. Stay with that one focus through everything, and you have found the harmony, the point at which all things meld into one.